weeks ago, a mother called me. She was divorced and is now a single mother to 2 children, one of whom, her daughter, was struggling with an eating disorder. With effort, her daughter made her way to high school, and now her greatest dream is to one day study marine biology. Her mother was anxious. She didn't know what her daughter should expect at high school, much less at university, and how she could support her. She was worried that she couldn't provide everything her daughter needed. Somehow, she was blaming herself because she couldn't have conversations like an academic could provide. She has no experience in any kind of academic studies. And as a single mother with 2 children, she could hardly finance her daughter's education. Let me tell you another story about a girl named Sina. She's 16 years old, and her parents had fled from the former Yugoslavia without even getting the chance to finish their education after the 5th or 6th grade. She herself was struggling in Germany. Her parents couldn't teach her the German language. And at the age of 14, she became clinically depressed, comparing herself to all her classmates and feeling isolated because she was so different due to her background. My own parents are refugees who fled from the civil war in Sri Lanka. I'm 20 years old now, the first to study in my family. And I know what it feels like when you enter a lecture hall and you are the only person with dark skin, and one of the few whose parents haven't studied themselves. If I now look back at my time at school, I realize how different I really was. All my friends at school ate lunch in the cafeteria, while I was one of the few who couldn't afford lunch at school, because all I had for lunch were €2. I was the one who lied to his teachers about my cousin having some wedding, so that I wouldn't have to go on a school trip, because I knew my parents couldn't afford it. My parents don't know I did that. Until now, I guess. I was constantly embarrassed to talk to anyone about anything, because I didn't know the people they talked about. The songs, the movies, the quotes, the stories, pretty much anything they've been growing up with. I was almost 16 when, for the first time, I was in a restaurant, and it felt like as if I was a child again. I didn't know how to behave. I've never been to a restaurant before. And neither have my parents, who are far older than me. I was 18 when, for the first time, I took my mom out for dinner. And it was a mesmerizing experience for her. Stories like these, and my own story, raise the question how, in a country like Germany, your education, your opportunities, and how you can fulfill your own potential can be so dependent on where you're from, what education, and how much money your parents have. On the one hand, a lot of families simply lack the money for certain experiences, from sports and music classes to visiting a theater or science workshops. On the other hand, as a consequence, a lot of young students have difficulties finding their own way into the worlds of sports, arts, or science. I'm studying molecular medicine right now, and I remember how at first I thought studying, especially something like that, was unreachable, because I had no one to offer me guidance. A lot of people who grew up under similar circumstances can probably share this feeling of somehow being lost. We all know from our own experience that during our time at school, we tend to live in a bubble, somehow oblivious to the opportunities the world might hold. In my case, it was a constant struggle for answers. What can I do? What are my opportunities? What could I become? My parents couldn't help me much. They didn't really know the language, much less the education system, and knew nothing about what I could become. It is essential to have somebody who can take you seriously, who can support and motivate you, offer perspective, and a chance to follow your own individual interests and ambitions. Someone who can introduce you to fields outside of school, outside of what your parents might be able to show you. It is crucial not to be isolated, not to feel alone, to have the assurance that you're not the only one struggling with whatever difficulties you're faced with. Almost 2 years ago, I asked myself, what kind of support and which experiences have helped me on my own way to education? I was lucky. I was lucky to have had the right mentors, the right encouragement, the right support at the right time. And I asked myself, what could I do to give something back to the young students of today? So in 2017, right after I started university, I founded an NGO called Aelius to support young children and students from non-academic backgrounds. With my NGO, we are doing whatever we can to address these challenges. We offer seminars and workshops all over Germany on a range of topics to open up the world to young students. Apart from these workshops, we encourage students to visit a DNA lab with us or visit a theater backstage. Moreover, we have politicians, actors, professors who act as mentors, supporting students for 2-3 years as someone to talk to, as someone who encourages them, and someone who believes in them. They share their own experiences, how they've overcome their difficulties, and may even offer a chance to follow in their footsteps. Moreover, we go to schools and universities all over Germany, offering advice, telling young students from our own experiences, and more specifically, to give an example, helping them write CVs or give insight in how to finance your education. With our Aelius and the work we do, we can support young students such as Sina, but also parents, like the mother I told you about, who face difficulties trying to support their children in every way they can. The students we support, some of them have the most heartbreaking stories to tell. Their stories, their lives, paint a picture of how inequality is spread throughout our education system. Almost every year, new statistics are published, but the numbers never seem to change. The most recent study by the German Center for Higher Education revealed that almost 80 out of 100 students whose parents have studied grow up to eventually study at a university themselves. Looking at working class families, this number drops to almost a quarter. This major discrepancy shows that somehow there is a part of society which has to surmount significantly more obstacles on their way to equal opportunities. Looking at this data, we have decided to focus our work on young children and students from non-academic backgrounds. Naturally, this comes along with the question many people ask me. Do we want to make academics out of everyone? And my answer is no. Think about it yourselves. Is your social and financial background the only thing determining what you can become? What about our education system in general? What is education? In our work, we don't only want to illustrate and support the needs of young students, but also point out a major flaw in our education system. Looking at the education system in Germany, you have to ask yourself, what kind of people does this system produce? Who are those best fitted to this system? Who are those who would get A marks all the time? Future university professors. All our life, we are trimmed, shaped, and educated into academic excellence, away from where our true potential might lie. Our education system should embrace students with different, diverse, and difficult backgrounds. Those are the young minds who have a story to tell. The unexpected in a system where everyone is supposed to follow the same path. Not everybody is born to be an academic, and neither should our education system be based on such an assumption. We should support young students individually. On the one hand, a lot of young students have difficulties due to their social and financial background. On the other hand, we don't encourage young people into, for instance, arts or literature, because becoming an artist is so unrealistic. But especially getting into arts or politics requires independence, contacts, experience, and encouragement. Something not every parent can provide, and something our education system fails to provide. We live in Germany, a country where everything should be possible. However, we cling to a system that discriminates between students after the 4th grade, dividing them into who might have the most potential and those who might not. That's not something we can honestly call equality. Technically, there is a world of opportunities waiting for everyone. But somehow, we often forget that having access to those is difficult enough. Sometimes I feel like, especially for those young students from diverse and oftentimes difficult backgrounds, our education system is like playing the lottery. Anyone can win, but not everyone. I hope for the future that education will evolve, not only by not defining success by academic excellence, but also by being inclusive and supportive of students who face challenges due to their social background. How we perceive education and how we embrace the stories, difficulties, and challenges of the young minds of tomorrow gives them the opportunity to embrace a future of independence and fulfillment. Thank you.